Yo, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about Immersive Theater, what builds I ran, and how I got through to Act 12. First things first, for both classic and featured repertoire, I don't think you really need much investment. Realistically, through both of these, I kind of went with half-ass builds. At the time, both of my main DPS were not fully built, and these other two characters were kind of just there to be there. I didn't really have any rhyme or reason. The main thing is just maintaining that you have some demon wedges on your characters and that you're on level, and you should be able to clear both the classic and featured repertoire pretty nicely. By the time you get to Act 3 of featured repertoire, you'll probably have like a actual build if you're just starting. But I think at this point, everybody's probably done with classic repertoire and featured repertoire. So these two I'm not really going to get into all that much. It's honestly Immortal repertoire where things get difficult, and I wouldn't say that it gets super difficult until about Act 6. I believe I did the first few acts with very minimal investment. Granted, you still need some investment on some of these characters, but if you simply wanted to get the character Psyche, at bare minimum, you only really need to complete up until about 10 stars, which would be the first two acts of Immortal repertoire, which at the time I did with a pretty minimal invested Lynn. We'll get to the actual builds in a sec here, but just wanted to kind of get that out of the way, give you some idea of what to expect and where you can kind of get to if you just bare minimum want the character. Let's talk about what makes Immersive Theater Immortal repertoire difficult. Starting off, you're going to have a list of buffs and debuffs that will both give you some advantage, but greatly give you some negatives that'll make it a lot more difficult to get through these levels as opposed to the others. First things first, it restricts you to pretty much using only a Pyro or Anemo damage character by making the enemies take increased Pyro and Anemo damage by 400% and take reduced damage from other attributes by 50%. Additionally, when an extreme threat enemy HP falls below 50%, it becomes invincible for 30 seconds and summons reinforcements. Each defeated enemy grants all allied units one stack of 1% damage dealt increase, stacking up to 50 times. Invincibility ends early as once a set number of enemies are defeated. I believe that number is about like 50 enemies, but this one honestly is really annoying because it essentially just stalls out boss fights. So if you're just barely hitting the damage numbers you need to be able to kill it, this can be a run ender because it'll just stall so much time alongside any other stall tactics that some of the other bosses use. So what's next? Every 5 instances of damage dealt by an ally grants one stack of 10% skill damage increase, lasting 15 seconds and stacking up to 10 times. This is obviously a buff to help you out. Allies' ranged weapons damage are increased by 50%. This one is huge because honestly, if you're not using ranged weapon damage in this setup, you're pretty much not dealing damage realistically. Now, we have a couple more nerfs. Enemies regenerate 30% of their max shield every 3 seconds. Regeneration pauses while any element bonus effect is active. While a Primander is present, nearby enemies take 25% less damage. And this one's going to be very important for Psyche runs. And the next one, when enemies take 80% less damage, this reduction diminishes by 2% each time they take damage from a ranged weapon. So having a ranged weapon is going to be very important because otherwise they are taking 80% less damage all the time. And realistically, you're probably not going to be able to clear that. So with all this combined, it pretty much forces you to use a character that has a ranged weapon as their main weapon here. And those are the two characters we're going to be talking about today, both Lynn and Psyche. Now, let's get to the first character that we're going to be using for this, Lynn. Lynn is really good, and at high investment, she just becomes insane for this Immersive Theater. Intron level 6 pretty much makes it so that you can hold left click down forever in your ulti, and as long as you have sanity, you're pretty much good. Like, you don't need much else. Anything before Intron level 6, while good, it makes it so that at the very least bosses become a little harder because you don't get that laceration debuff on the targets without using your E skill. So if you don't have your Intron level 6, you're going to have to use this more often to apply a debuff, which it really slows down the pace at which you're dealing damage and makes it a little bit more annoying to manage your sanity. If you're able to just maintain your gunpowder revelry mode the entire time, it'll make it 10 times easier because you never have to spend sanity on a different ability to pop a debuff. This is mainly going to pertain to boss fights, and it makes bosses at low intron investments a little bit more difficult and a little bit more skill based because it just kind of changes the way you have to play the fight, since you need to make sure that you're applying the debuff when you can while maintaining a large amount of sanity left over. So it creates different damage windows, I would say, and it changes the overall pace of the game. For the gunpowder revelry mode, you just kind of stay in this mode forever once you hit Intron level 6, and you don't really need to worry. The only time you ever need to get out of this is when you're low on sanity, or you just need to move out of the way. When it comes to demon wedges for Lynn, I think a lot of people have a mixed feeling between skill efficiency and skill duration. I went for a mix of both skill duration and skill efficiency, with an extra wings inspo for max sanity and skill efficiency. I was having a difficult time balancing my sanity when I tried going full duration here. So at one point I tried max eternity to where I was running 4 eternity, and that's kind of it. No skill efficiency whatsoever outside of the wings inspo, but it didn't feel as good because it just still made me lose too much sanity, and I just didn't like that. I was getting off of ulti a lot faster, and I might try it again now that I'm at Intron 6, but once I got to Intron 6, I still like the efficiency a little bit more, because I never really went back to duration. I can when I split it half and half, I kind of stuck with this. Two blaze inspos for attack and skill efficiency, 2 blaze eternities for attack and skill duration, a wings inspo for max sanity and skill efficiency, and then these 3 you can pretty much run every single time. Devouring Wildfire, extra skill damage, gain a stacking attack buff up to 120 stacks. Midnight Sun, giving duration, damage, and pyro attack. And Uplift, of course. This was supposed to be morale, actually. I actually ran morale here instead of Uplift. I was using her in a different build as a support, so don't mind the Uplift, make it morale. Giving you an extra percentage of damage at high HP because of the morale boost, alongside with some more attack percent as well. The big thing here is also the weapon, right? So her Hansel and Gretel, I just went Clarity, attack speed, Tremble for trigger probability, Impetus for attack percent, and Penetration for spike attack percent. I think some other people run the crit chance and crit damage. Some might have run fold over, but I felt like this is what ended up feeling the best for me and was most comfortable when running with the build. Now, for the weapons on her, I pretty much just went skill damage. So I went with Wayne Ray for the skill damage percentage. In terms of the demon wedges, I just have the momentum, celerity, and the piercing ascent for the flying tech. And then for the ranged weapons, at the time, I only ran X Chris Duo just for the skill damage. I know that there are other people who run with the blue current pulse. for the skill duration and the extra. I believe this applies an extra source of damage and increases dual pistols damage by 45%. I haven't bothered building it because as Crestuo, it just has been fine for me. And to be honest, Lynn was only built to complete the immortal repertoire, so I didn't want to build a weapon just for her, or that I felt like it was just for her. So I kind of just stuck with X Chris Duo that I knew was going to kind of apply to a couple different people, and just kind of stuck with that as my placeholder for now until I feel the need to build the other weapon. So I would say build either weapon. If you have the other one, is fine as well, but I went with S Chris Duo and it worked perfectly fine all the way. Again, it's just a stat stick. These two weapons are simply just stat sticks. No real demon wedge investments are needed, nor level investments. I kept both of them at level 60, and at the time it was level 60. I recently put this up to level 70. So for the weapons, again, no demon wedges are really needed. I would say the only real thing that you need on Lynn is eventually to get some investment in the Intron levels, because again, at level 6, the gameplay just becomes a lot smoother, and there isn't as much of a necessity to use your abilities. Next, we're going to talk about Psyche. For Psyche, I only got up to Intron level 2, which I think most people have gotten up to that who have cleared the Immortal Repertoire. But I think if you are looking to clear the whole thing, you might not be at this point. So I can't really speak on her power level prior to Introns, because I didn't build Psyche until after I had already cleared everything with Lynn. But I built her just for the sake of trying to figure out how well she works when you do have her built to the extent that you can. I think there's some people out there who got really lucky and hit Intron level 3, and I think that's really cool. If you do have that, that's great. But I don't think you need up to level 3. I would say at minimum you might only need Intron level 1, because that really changes the way it works, allowing you to gain a little bit more max HP and increasing the Psyche damage. By max HP, I mean a little bit more healing to your max HP, sorry. But this one, Intron level 1, is probably the one that's needed the most. Intron level 2 is nice to have. But Intron level 1 is good because it'll extend the duration of your flight, and that's ultimately what you want with this character. You want to be flying as long as possible. So for the skills, at this point I have everything maxed out to level 8. All my skills on all the characters are level 8, except for maybe the supports, which we'll get to at some point. And they're all maxed to level 70. I'm still not TR level 60, I believe, to when you need to be able to go up to level 80, but you don't really need that far. For the demon wedges, what do we have on Psyche? Honestly, I think this is a pretty standard build for Psyche that most people are using. It's literally just skill damage all of the way through. I think some others might be mixing in some duration, but I kind of just stuck with the Volition for skill damage, attack percent, get that skill damage as high as possible, because we're going to try and nuke the boss. Some people are also using Duel in exchange of one of the Volition demon wedges here, but I'm personally not a big fan of Duel, despite how good it actually is. I know Duel's really good, but I'm just not a big fan of it. I like to just shut my brain off sometimes, so trying to maintain that range to keep a damage boost, I'm kind of whatever about it. So honestly, pick whichever one. You either run 5 Volition or 4 Volition and 1 Duel. Up to you, really. Or whatever you have enough resources to kind of fit. I will say I haven't tried the Immortal Repertoire with less investment other than this, so I can't speak for the power of the character with less demon wedges equipped. Now, onto some of the other demon wedges being used. Whispering Zephyr, some more skill damage, and when a Nemo character uses combat skills, it gains an additional 84% skill damage increase for 6 seconds. This is a no-brainer. Lots of damage coming out of this demon wedge alone. Moving on to Griffin Squall Wildfire, a Nemo attack,
skill damage, skill range, pretty much every stat you want. And resolve in this case, because we're going to be low HP a fair bit. So resolve is going to give us that damage boost for having lower HP percentage. So low HP, high damage, gets us some extra damage boost alongside the already 75% attack damage. Moving on to the weapon, I'm running wings for crit damage, celerity for attack speed, fold over for multi-shot, and focus for some crit percent chance. I tried running penetration, it didn't feel that great. Impetus didn't feel that great, and trigger probably just didn't feel that great. I like the multi-shot chance because she shoots a ton. And then the crit just felt better since we're like kind of primarily doing single target damage with her shots. And then the attack speed felt good because, again, you want to be shooting a bunch. So that's mainly it for the demon wedges. In terms of the weapons, the only real one that matters is the Elpides Unabound. I don't even know if I said that right. You get some extra resolve after an animal character uses an ultimate skill, grants Thousand Wings Blessing, increased resolve, and attack speed by 15%. Each instance of skill damage or range weapon damage extends the duration by 2%. So you basically have this up the entire time. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's her weapon. For the demon wedges, pretty much the same thing as I do with every pole arm at this point. Piercing, Ascent, Swift Momentum, and Celerity. They're just there so I could get the movement going. But honestly, demon wedges aren't needed for your weapons. For the range weapon, I also ran X-Crest Duo, just another stat stick, skill damage plus 24%. No demon wedges on this one either. Again, we're just here for the weapon skill damage. Or the weapon skill attribute skill damage percent extra. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, we're just here for the passive. So for these two weapons, I would say this is the only time the weapon really probably matters the most here. Because again, she pretty much gets everything she needs from this weapon skill alone, from the Elpides Abound. So this one is definitely a must. If you don't have this at this point, I would probably just go with the Wainwraith if you have it for some extra skill damage. But I think if you've gotten to the point where you're pushing Immortal, you've probably already have spent some of those tickets on getting the weapon. So you should probably already have the weapon. If you don't, again, this is probably a good alternative for the Wainwraith if you have it as well. So that's it for Psyche, really. The demon wedges, again, just focus on the skill damage, because realistically, this character, all they need to do is survive to the boss, and then the boss is free. The waves get a little difficult, but as long as you play the waves correctly, then you should be fine. The waves with Psyche compared to Lynn is that Psyche just needs to focus on the elite mobs more, because she can't just clear big waves without having to focus on them. So as long as you're able to focus on the elites themselves, and we'll have a run of each character later in the video to kind of showcase how Act 12 goes. But yeah, as long as you're focusing on the elites, you should be fine with this build. It's what I did it with when I finally got the Psyche together and decided to run it just to test it out. So yeah, here's the build. Hopefully it works out for you. So let's talk about the supports that you're going to be running. For me, I didn't really start using actual supports until about, I believe it was Act 4 or Act 3 of the Immersive Theater Immortal repertoire. I think it was, let's see, Act 3 here. No, Act 3 I'm still using whatever. But Act 4 is when it really started using the support characters. And there's 3 supports that you're pretty much going to be using the most. And the first one we are going to talk about is the Truffle and Filbert. Truffle and Filbert is pretty much used on all of my setups at this point for Immortal repertoire. The second support is what changes the most. But for Truffle and Filbert, I only had her to level 60. The Demon Wedges are pretty low investment with Eternity, Eternity. And Eternity all for max skill duration and max sanity. Another Eternity for skill duration, and Serenity for the extra sanity for you and your teammates. Obviously, if you're running supports, one of your supports has to have this. If you're not running the Serenity on the Truffle and Filbert, you should be running the Uplift for some extra damage buffs. So, very simple, low investment support build here. I didn't go too deep into them because realistically, I don't think you need to for your supports, as long as you're able to fill in that skill duration and max sanity. The important thing with your supports is what skills you have leveled up, and you want to make sure that for Truffle and Filbert, that at the very least, the damage ability is maxed out as high as you can, because this is what's going to give you extra damage boost. So you want your damage percentage buff to go as far as possible so your DPS can get the most amount of damage out from your supports. Introns, again, level 0. I bare minimum investment. The most investment on these characters is just simply the skills. Next up, and this is the other support that I used mainly when playing with Lynn for the first few acts of the Immortal repertoire up until about Act 6, was the main character here. So for the main character, again, just increase the buff for this skill. She was only really there for weapon damage because she gives a lot of weapon damage to the character. So obviously the weapon damage from your abilities on Lynn ends up just kind of, it's just weapon damage percent. So like there's not much to it. You just get a whole bunch of extra percentage damage, and it worked out a fair bit up until I decided to build our other support here for some extra anemo damage, Daphne, and we'll get to her in a sec here. For my main character, again, the Demon Wedges, very low investment. Honestly, had much lower investment than some of the other supports that I used. Skill efficiency, max sanity and skill efficiency, max sanity, and then Serenity, of course, or Uplift, depending on what you're using. You can use Duration here as well. This is what carried me for a little bit. It helped me for a couple of the acts until I then swapped to the next support, which we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about Daphne. Daphne is a big change. It took me a while to swap to Daphne simply because at the time I did not have her built at all. She was like level 0 or whatever base level you get her at. So I had not touched this character at all up until I realized I need a little bit more damage. I need a little bit more help. Daphne also is just going to help overall with both Psyche and Lynn. For Lynn, she's going to grant an extra source of damage, being that she adds an additional anemo damage to Lynn. So now you have Lynn dealing both pyro and anemo damage, which is great because it's both boosted. And she's just a really good healer. She has just overall support. For her, she just consistently became the MVP because she just kind of gives you a little bit of everything you need, specifically in this Immortal repertoire, giving range weapon buffs, crit boost, trigger probability boost, some healing to maintain your HP, especially when you're playing Psyche, some extra anemo damage. It's just a bit of everything. She is kind of the GOAT here, I would argue, as the supports go. I think at this point I have her max level 8, but I believe when I completed Act 12, I only had these abilities till about 6 or 7. 6, 7, haha. But like, I didn't really super invest into it just yet until much later. I think by the time I tried it with Psyche, I had them at level 8, but it didn't go that that high when I first completed it with Lynn. So for the wedges, again, pretty low investments on my supports here. She had the uplift here because, again, my Truffle and Filbert had the Serenity. So uplift for some extra percentage damage and on your teammates. And then she also had Turbulent Cyclone, just overall skill duration, which she absolutely needs. And when an Anemo character's ranged weapon triggers a bonus effect, grant plus 5% resolve to the user and nearby allies. So clearly this works really well with Psyche. And then 3 Eternities for max sanity and skill duration. Again, very, very low investment. I think I also had Wildfire, I think, at some point. For the extra range. So I think I mixed between Cyclone and Wildfire. I think I didn't have Cyclone when I was running with Lynn, so I ran it like this with Lynn. So she just kind of maintained the range. And then I didn't really apply Cyclone up until I started running with Psyche. So Psyche, obviously getting the most advantage when with the Cyclone, and then Wildfire just kind of gives me more range so that her heal and everything just goes to a much larger area of effect, right? So either or can be used. Obviously, if you're running with Psyche, you should probably use Cyclone, or both if you have enough to fit everything in there. But again, as low investment as possible, just to make things work for my supports here on the Demon Wedge. If you want to put more into them, feel free. Those are the main stats that I really cared about, so that's kind of what I went with. The big thing for supports is also just the weapons. For both supports, I ran them with ranged weapons. One of them has to have Arclight Apocalypses. This is probably just the best ranged support weapon in general. Skill duration, when landing a crit hit with this weapon, randomly grants other allies one of the following for 16 seconds, either attack percent, defense percent, skill damage percent, or skill duration. All really good stats with the exception of maybe defense. It's probably the one you don't want the most, but you're bound to get all of them basically. And for the Demon Wedges, I just kind of went all into crit chance. So crit chance, attack speed, multi-shot, and attack percent. I'm sure there's a more adjusted setup for this weapon, but this is kind of just what I went with for the sake of trying to get as much crit chance as possible, while fitting everything in at the same time. I'm sure there's other crit Demon Wedges that work here as well, but I didn't really take too much time to put into the Demon Wedges for the weapons because realistically, again, just low investment on my supports. That's pretty much what I'm kind of preaching the entire time here. Low investment on supports. If you decide to go any further, that also works. So what other weapon did I use? Because we have the Arclight Apocalypses, but obviously our other support is going to need a second weapon as well. Honestly, anything with skill duration, either the All Steel Breaker or the Scream Shot, whichever one is not equipped by somebody, I just kind of put it on the other support for skill duration. No Demon Wedges needed, no real investment needed. They're there for the skill duration, have their skills last forever as best as you can. Quick note before we get into the actual runs, this is what the team setup is pretty much going to look like for you. If you're running Psyche, you're going to be running it like this. The weapon here, the polearm, Express Duo, and then this guy here for the healing if you have him. So Mr. Goodnight is just going to give you some extra healing. Again, I only had him level 1, so it's kind of just whatever. But he's just going to give you some extra stats, some extra HP, keeps your healing up when you're low HP, so you can get that extra amount of skill duration, basically. We're going to have both our supports, Truffle and Filbert, and Daphne. And then, again, the two weapons we talked about, the Arclight Apocalypses, and pretty much the other Scream Shot or Osteobreaker for the skill duration. So whichever one you want to put on them. That's if you're running Psyche. If you're running Lynn, you're going to run Lynn there. You're going to run the Wayne Wraith. You're going to keep the S-Chris Duo, but your pet is going to change to the Ardent Pyrotel. That's what I ran here, since it's going to give you some extra ammo and sanity back. You can also run the Zip Pyro, since it's going to restore sanity to yourself and allies. So either or works well. The Pyrotel worked best for me, though. That's what I went with. Again, low investment, also level 1. So both my pets were level 1. You don't really need that much crazy investment into your pets. Something I have also seen, which some people have ran, was they're running Psyche as their main setup like this, but instead of running Filbert or Daphne, one of them becomes a Lynn if you have them, with, I would say, probably Wayne Wraith or something that gives them like duration here as well. Probably the duration one. People have been running this, I've seen, but every time I've seen it, I've noticed that the Lynn is pretty high investment, or like some is investment into the introns. So I think like if you're running this at that point, just run the high investment Lynn with like 2 actual supports, because at that point the Lynn is going to be carrying your runs more often than not. But this is probably a good setup if you're struggling to get through the waves, because Lynn will do a pretty good job at carrying those levels. But I haven't tried it myself, just mainly what I've seen out there. This video is mainly about what I used personally. So again, we're going to be swapping off to the Daphne here. So in a sec, we're going to be going to the runs themselves. So just feel free to check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Twitch if you guys like the video. I stream both this and some other games like Marvel Rivals if you enjoyed that. Thank you again for watching. I know this was a long one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Pay for wasting my time. How much longer must I wait before the lines are blood? Now I'm mad.
You do it, I think I can do it.
You asked for it. Vanish. I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. Pay for wasting my time. I'm mad.
I didn't realize I ran out of stamina there.
You asked for it.
How much longer must the flame of war demand our blood? The peace that will come one day.
Destroy!
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. For the peace that will come one day, vanish. How much longer must the flames of war demand our blood? I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. Return to the peace that will come one day. Ow!
Pay for wasting my time.
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life.
You asked for it.
For the peace that will come one day. Ow! How much longer must the flames of war demand our blood? Ow! Ouch! I will maintain the utmost respect for human life.
Come on.
The peace that will come one day.
We got a lot of shield. There we go. There's like no damage.
How much longer must the flames of war demand our blood?
Now I'm mad.
Ow! I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. Ouch! Ouch!
Pay for wasting my time.
Hang in there! How much longer must the flames of war demand our blood? I will maintain the utmost respect
I'm gonna
for
kick
human
your
life.
asses.
For the peace that will come one day. How much longer must the flames of war demand our blood?
Wait, did we skip the stall phase entirely?
You asked for it.
Wait, let's go. We skipped the stall.
Peace that will
Let's
come
fucking go! Oh, that was very clean, or as clean as I thought. I think I could get it.
I'm so excited. I finally get to fight with you. Decay, the burning sunshine. How much longer must the flames for the peace? I will
Astral one. Let's go on to the next one. There's one of the elites. Just him down. The next one. Honestly, the hardest part about the Psyche runs is this. Sometimes you're gonna kind of forget where the elites are, and they're gonna take a lot of your time here. But fortunately, we did not forget.
Demand of blood.
Onto the next one here.
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life.
We're just using our skill mainly to keep us up, I would say. It's a good source of damage, though, of course. But I think against mobs like this, huge waves, it's relatively unreliable for any real damage. There we go, we got a elite here. Come on. There we go. More attentive to these elites. They will sneak right by you. Keep an eye on it. I think there's no elites currently. Oh, there's one right here. Boom, there we go. Go on to the next one. I think this trial right here, the elites on this one stumped me the most when I first did it. I don't know why, but they were a little hard to spot when I first tried it with Psyche here, but I think we should be good. Got a lot of good damage out. Got another elite here. Make sure we're not missing any other elites, any glowing guys. Oh, there we go. There's one. There's two. There's like 4? 3? Maybe just 2. As long as we're clearing them, we should be fine.
How much longer must the flame draw demand of blood?
Gonna notice these waves die a lot slower when running it on Psyche than they do when running it on Lynn here. But nonetheless, they are gonna go down. Now we're on to the boss. The boss should be probably the easiest part of this all. As long as we're good here. Should be good. It's gonna take a little bit of patience here, but we should be fine. The damage isn't too crazy, but then again, oh no, I kind of messed myself up here. All right, what am I doing? Performance anxiety? Oh no. Keep flying in. Well, you're gonna see that even when you are bad like me, you can still get this done. So, as long as you have the builds. The builds are idiots. I don't know why. I meant to do that a little earlier. So, what I went for there, I was trying to get just a little bit of extra damage since I knew that we were about to go into that invincibility mode with all of the mobs there. But unfortunately, I played that back. So if you have enough damage, something that's really good that you can get is like, if you're able to deal enough damage, you can straight up skip this entire part. Oh, I messed up. I was not really paying attention to my resources. So let's try and maintain that here. Honestly, at this point, if you're running low on HP, you can simply just go back to standing mode and then kind of just wait it out. Or if you're kind of a Chad, just stay flying through the whole thing. Kind of messed up and reactivated my thing there for no reason. But you'll see that we're, at this point, we just have plenty of time to kind of clear this up here. So should be good to go. Just a little bit more damage. She's being stubborn. And just like that, trial successful with very, very scrappy fighting. That was not clean at all. So you know that at the very least, suboptimal clear, but you were still able to do it in about 6 minutes. So Mortal Repertoire Act 12 with yours truly, Psyche.